Alright everybody, what is up? Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the show. I'm Daniel Cody, giving you commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Before I get started, I want to give a couple of thank yous. Recently, my videos have really been getting a lot of higher views than what I am used to, and it is all thanks to you, and I am so grateful. May 31st, I did a review on Over the Edge 1998. It started off with 3 views, went up to 27 views. And then, of course, you have King of the Ring 2001. That view started off with 6, but it went to 30 views and got 1 like. SmackDown, July 16th, 47 views and 1 like. Money in the Bank, 2011. Review from the past, 30 views and 2 likes. Money in the Bank of this year, 49 views, 1 like. Last week's SmackDown from July 23rd, 99 views and a like. I'm not here to flex on myself. I'm here to tell each and every one of you how grateful I am and how much I really appreciate your views and your subscriptions. Thank you guys so much. It means the world to me. Now, with that being said, let's do a review from the past, last year's SummerSlam 2020. And as you all know, I do reviews from the past as we prepare to gear up for the pay-per-view of this year, which will come from Las Vegas, Nevada, SummerSlam, Saturday, August 21st. Let's get started with last year's view, shall we? Starting off, we start the night off. Let me slow down and say this. The Thunderdome was the first night for SummerSlam. And no, the first one was on a Friday. The second one was on a Sunday. But either way, SummerSlam was the first pay-per-view to take place inside the Thunderdome. And while the chants and cheers were sound effects, to my knowledge, it was still awesome. The pyrotechnics were awesome. The stage setting was awesome. The lighting was awesome. And it was great, and it was much needed for that time. And the virtual audience was well needed just to keep the show interesting for the time, because we all knew the pandemic that was surrounding us and is still surrounding us at the time. So the Thunderdome was very awesome. We started the night off with Asuka versus Raven from Teen Titan haircut looking Bailey. Azeroth Metreon Ding Dong. Yes, Bailey and Sasha Two Belt Banks were champions that night, and Asuka is the second woman to compete in 2 matches in the same night. The first woman, to my knowledge, was Becky Lynch at Money in the Bank 2019. Likewise, one was successful, one was not. With Asuka, her first match was unsuccessful, in which she attempted to take the SmackDown Championship off of Bailey. But thanks to her friend Sasha Banks at the time, she was unsuccessful. And of course, not to mention the most devastating move in all of entertainment, the roll-up. Okay, I know, we're all sick and tired of the roll-up. But the thing is, there are certain times where you don't need to do the roll-up. And Hell in a Cell, like this year, is not the event to end the match or the event with a roll-up. Now, thank you for not ending the match in a no contest like you did 2019 and 2018. But a roll-up inside Hell in a Cell? Not it. But either way, nonetheless, Asuka was unsuccessful in defeating Raven, Bailey, because I always say Raven looks like Bailey looks like Raven. I'm sorry. So you have Bailey with the Raven haircut, and next up you have Starfire, Sasha Banks. Raven and Starfire. Bailey and Sasha Banks. And Starfire with her hair, Sasha with her hair color can be Starfire. I'm having a little bit too much fun, guys, and this is a bit of a blooper, so bear with me. But either way, in all seriousness, Bayley was successful in defending her SmackDown championship, in which she would do very successfully and become the longest reigning champion ever in SmackDown history. Of course, Sasha would not have the same luck because Asuka would go on to defeat Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship in a much more epic match. And again, thumbs up to Asuka for having the energy to compete in two matches on the same night. We know Bret Hart has done this many years ago in Madison Square Garden against his brother and Yokozuna. Many others have done it, but those are the three that come to mind at the moment. So Asuka lost to Bayley, but was able to defeat Sasha, and Bayley and Sasha's relationship went downhill from there much later on. But moving on, we have the Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Andrade. And the backstory is Zelina and her Bruja Way, which Bruja is Spanish for witch, and her hashtag Bruja Way poisoned Montez Ford, who is the master of the Frog Splash in my opinion. The other two masters are Rob Van Dam and Eddie Guerrero. However, despite poisoning Montez and starting a brief rivalry with Bianca Belair, which is why Vegas said on Talking Smack that she has unfinished business with her, despite all of that, Montez Ford was able to recover in a couple of weeks and help his partner, Angelo Dawkins, defend their Raw Tag Team Championships against Angel Garza and Andrade, using his great frog splash, and he delivers the best one. So despite Vegas' witchy ways, the Street Profits got the smoke and retained their Raw championships. And I must say, leading up to that event, I have never seen Angelo Dawkins so upset. They're usually a bunch of fun-loving, happy guys, the Street Profits, but when it was revealed who poisoned Montez, I've never seen Angelo Dawkins that ticked off. So everything's fun and games till you make somebody mad. Then it gets personal. Speaking of personal, we have the Monday Night Messiah, Seth Rollins, or should I say the Monday Night Piranha, the Jesus wannabe Seth Rollins, versus Rey Mysterio. Now, I'm not going to compare in the script Seth Rollins to Aaron Long, but his idea of the greater good is 7 slots. He's at, let's just say script-wise, Seth Rollins is number 7 and Aaron Long is number 1. If you don't know who that is, don't worry about it. I'm just using humor. But either way, the point is his idea of the greater good was more so evil. I mean, here's a guy, Seth Rollins, who twice pierced Rey Mysterio's ear, tried to squeeze his eye out like Christmas Story, attempted to do the same thing to his son, and also doing it to Aleister Black. So Dominic, son of Rey Mysterio, decides to step up and bring the fight to Seth Rollins. That night, Seth Rollins did, I will say this, Seth Rollins was the guy we all loved to hate at the time. I mean, for real, this Messiah angle made us despise him. We despised Seth Rollins, which is good, which lets us know Seth Rollins is doing a good job at being a heel. Kind of like Roman Reigns. Some people are just good at being a heel, and Seth is one of those guys. Especially wearing those, on a funny note, those really bright suits. He's like Mr. Brown. But either way, Seth Rollins was one heck of a heel. He has this idea of being the Messiah and the greater good. Now that night, if you notice his attire, I will say this. It's bad enough that Seth Rollins thinks he's the Monday Night Messiah, which in my opinion,
he mocks God! He mocks God!
Man, I love how Joey Styles did that back in the day. Great pot bomb, by the way. That's second best to CM Punk. Or what do you think? But hey, it's bad enough that he mocks God. He mocks God with his Messiah attitude. But then he comes out to the ring mocking Mysterio with the attire that is famous for what he wore in the match of the year in '97 at Halloween Havoc when Rey Mysterio put his mask on the line in a Cruiserweight Championship match against Eddie Guerrero. That night he brutalized Dominic, but Dominic was able to bring some sort of competition. But unfortunately, Dominic was unsuccessful. But either way, later on, the Mysterio family would have their revenge with Seth Rollins falling to the wrath of Mysterio and his former protege, Buddy Murphy. Also, who at the time, strictly speaking, was dating Aaliyah, who was the daughter of Rey Mysterio. Moving on, two great main events that happened that night. The first one being Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. Great rivalry that year. They had an amazing rivalry. Just absolutely amazing. But that night, what was epic about that SummerSlam match was it was one of the only matches where no one pulled out their main finishers. They pulled out some of their special signatures, but not their main finishers. Drew McIntyre being his own signature DDT, which people kick out of now because back in the day that was his finisher. But with it not being as hurtful to people anymore, he has to use the Claymore. However, no one used their main finishers in that match, but the match in itself was still good. There was a filling out process for a minute. Randy Orton tried to play cat and mouse in the beginning with Drew, but thankfully later on, the match got interesting, and it was the only match where I will accept the roll-up. I'll accept the roll-up this time. I know many of us are sick of seeing the roll-up all the time, but I'll accept it this time because this was one of those matches that was so epic without the main finishers and with the roll-up, so I'll let that one slide. But they had a lot of great matches later on, being at Money in the Bank, Night of Champions, Hell in a Cell, and a special match on Monday Night Raw in December, I believe, or later on that year. It was November, I apologize. But either way, they had an amazing match, but last but not least, Drew McIntyre using the roll-up to be successful, and again, I'll accept the roll-up this time. But moving on, last but not least, we have The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, versus a metamorphosized Braun Strowman, who has gotten a haircut and has changed his attitude ever since losing the swamp fight at Extreme Rules at a very appropriately titled horror show, and not to mention the fact the wild card of this was Alexa Bliss. And if you want to know why Alexa Bliss is who she is right now, it could all be traced back to last year when she was attacked by the Fiend at the Performance Center. So that's why she is who she is today, and ironically for two reasons. One, the second one I will mention at the end, but for two reasons. This year, last year's SummerSlam and last year set the tone for what we have right now. And with Alexa and her being the wild card of the situation between The Fiend and Braun Strowman, that set the tone for her to be who she is today. And I am still not over the hypno powers of Alexa and her hypnotizing Zelina Vega at Money in the Bank. I'm still not over that. Talk about a Bruja way, or which way rather. Either way, going to the main event, Braun Strowman, a recently developed metamorphosist Braun Strowman versus The Fiend. And the reason Braun has changed is because, like everybody else, Braun is a victim of the Fiend's mind games, and everyone who comes in contact with the Fiend changes. So, the match was a hard-nosed hitting affair, Everybody, it was not a dull moment. As JR said, it wasn't a catch as can match. It was no collar and elbow tie-ups. It was hard nose in your face. And of course, you gotta watch it on Peacock, because if you wait on it to come on YouTube, you're gonna deal with the annoying censorship of Braun Strowman and them free censoring Braun Strowman hitting Bray Wyatt, or the Fiend rather, over the face with the steel steps. So if you really want to see some uncensored headshots during a PG era rather, go to Peacock if you can afford to do so. It's not on premium. Check it out. So the match was a hard-nosed affair. Both guys brought their best moves. The tables, the announce tables, one of the announce tables rather, was destroyed. The barricade was destroyed, with Braun Strowman tackling the Fiend through it. And of course, the Fiend, in many cases, being impervious to pain, it can't keep him down. And despite 2+ power slams, which one is enough to finish off a superstar, Braun Strowman was unable to defeat the fiendish one, the mushroom head reject, as I like to call him for humor. When he's a bad guy, of course. But the match didn't just happen in the ring or on the outside. It went to the entryway, and it went into the meeting right before the interview room, right before the curtain comes and you enter out into the stage. It happened there. I wouldn't say it was one of those attitude matches where they went all over the place like Peter Griffin and the Chicken, but it was one of those matches where they fought tooth and nail, and they would have destroyed the Thunderdome if they had more time, in my personal opinion. But, however, despite 2 power slams, the Fiend was unable to stay down, and Braun Strowman's work backfired when he opened the ring so he could slam the Fiend on the hardwood of the ring, except the Fiend would come back to deliver 2 Sister Abigails onto the hard part of the ring, scoring a victory, becoming the SmackDown Universal Champion. But the real shocker was near the end, and ironically, the tagline for that pay-per-view was, "You'll never see it coming." And the whole point of that was the end, because no one saw Roman Reigns coming back. That is why they put that title there and that tagline when it says "You'll never see it coming," because they had it scripted for Roman Reigns to return, and that's what we never saw coming. However, Roman came in and speared the Fiend, speared Braun, started beating Braun with chair shots, and then went on to attack the Fiend a little more. His t-shirt says "Wreck everyone and leave," and if you notice, Braun Strowman had a little work done on his teeth. But that moment was set the tone for Roman Reigns to become who he is right now. Because 1 week later at the pay-per-view Payback, after watching Braun Strowman and The Fiend tear each other apart, one superplexing the other through the ring and causing the ring to break, just like Big Show and Lesnar did, Roman Reigns would come out and pick up the pieces and become the Universal Champion, and has not been defeated since, and no one has been able to stop him. Ever since he has been champion and has taken on the head of the table he has become more heelish than ever before. He is one of the most unstoppable heels in SmackDown history. He's more of a tougher heel than JBL. And of course, you have Roman, SmackDown's unstoppable heelish champion, and Bobby Lashley being that same way on Raw's side. But that night set the tone for a lot of what we saw today, especially with Roman Reigns being the longest reigning champion and overshadowing JBL's reign. That's all the time I've got for you today. Thank you so much for your views. Again, we didn't see it coming, but the whole tagline was dedicated to the fact that Roman Reigns was coming back and better than ever before. So let's acknowledge that. and I'll see you next time.